Hey everyone, Alien Romulus is out and everyone's favorite face-hugging xenomorph is in theaters now. And if the company has its way, it'll be in your homes by Halloween because that's how August releases work nowadays. As a longtime horror fan, you know I love the Alien franchise and I tend to go a little easy on this franchise in reviews. But not this time because the devil's in the details and the fun stuff in this film isn't what they got wrong. So let's get into it and have some fun. But first, be sure to defy the company and give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos. Thank you so much. So, Alien Romulus falls in the franchise timeline between Alien and Aliens, and this story starts in the company's mining colony, a place where people are literally being worked to death for the benefit of the corporation, with little hope of ever being released from their contracts. The stars of the film are Rain, played by Cailee Spaeny, whose contract gets extended against her will, and her glitchy android brother, Andy, played by Jonsson. Their prospects are grim until they are presented with a very risky opportunity to do a scavenger job that includes breaking in to a derelict company space station to steal some cryotubes in order to escape the mines for this far-off colony. However, things go sideways when they realize the abandoned space station is not only in a deteriorating orbit that will crash into the planet's rings in a matter of hours, but that it also is invested with facehugger aliens who are super excited that new hosts have arrived for xenomorph implantation. First off, yes, I actually really enjoyed this movie, just like most of the other reviews out there. Here's what pretty much everyone is saying about the film, including me. It's great. It's an entertaining story that pegs the overall aesthetics and technology of the original, making it feel like an authentic continuation of the first Alien movie. While I love the film, it has some serious logic problems that aren't being addressed by many people. So rather than talking about all the same old things that all the other reviews are covering, I wanted to dig into the nuances of the story and the issues that didn't work, because that's where things get really interesting in this film. And I'll also try to keep the big spoilers out of my review, but there are spoilers in this review, and you should know that right up front. All right, so Rain, Andy, and their friends go up to this derelict space station, which is just kind of floating around unguarded as it slowly falls toward destruction. It's a cool premise. Yeah, to have a horror story in an abandoned structure full of dark dangers and in close quarters. But realistically, the people on the space station would have been sending regular communications to the company. Some people would have had a chance to evacuate, and others would have had time to call for help. Someone had clearly been able to shut down the space station, sending it into a decaying orbit. And given the expensive equipment and research being done, the company wouldn't just abandon it for no reason. Also, the company would have had the last known coordinates of the station before it fell out of contact. And even if no message got out, the company could have used AI and math to map out the potential locations and where to find it, which means that the company logically had to know where the space station was located, and yet they chose to let it descend into the rings and explode, which means that they must have known of the dangers on board the space station and figured it was too risky to go on, and so they let it deteriorate. So, given that, why wouldn't they have had drones, if not manned ships, watching to make sure the station was destroyed? Or why didn't they just incinerate it themselves with a nuke? Maybe the scavengers just happened to luck out and find the station before the company arrived, which is unlikely and requires a huge leap of logic. This leads to a lot of unasked and unanswered questions that could have been really interesting in the film if they had been addressed or even explored a little bit. In any case, the logic gap could have easily been fixed by leaving a few unmanned ships or drones to monitor the station's descent or to call for backup if needed. It would have also been fun if a company ship had arrived right at the end of the film to show that they weren't stupid enough to lose an entire space station. Inside the station, there is a rather weak storage system that contains the facehuggers, and the facehuggers in Alien Romulus are so much faster and a bit scarier than in Aliens, which really ramps up the tension. The storage system is so flimsy, keeping them in these frozen liquid blocks to imprison them, making them really easy to break out of should the temperature fall at all and warm up just a little bit. They aren't even enclosed in glass or metal or anything like that to provide a safe means of storage and transportation for the facehuggers, which they knew were clearly very dangerous. While there isn't any clear indication for how so many of them were created and stored on the station, they were clearly grown and stored at astonishingly high quantities for some unspecified reason, which probably included bringing them down to the mine to enhance the workers so that they would stop dying and could remain productive forever. However, anyone working with the biological hazard would see how these things were stored and would immediately understand that this station was like 5 seconds away from being overrun by xenomorphs, which is, of course, exactly what happened at some point. That just leaves the overwhelming feeling that the production crew really liked the visuals of the storage system and needed some easy way for a lot of creatures to get out and go after the tasty humans when they are arriving. It would have been far more realistic to have a nest of eggs somewhere on the station that wakes up when the new humans arrive. They could have still had the insane storage facility, but there just isn't a reasonable explanation for why humans would store the facehuggers like that. And a nest of eggs is already part of the canon and would have fit in with the story. The facehuggers are some of the creepiest characters in horror, and the way they clamp onto the human's face to insert and implant their organ down the person's throat should throw off all kinds of red flags for any normal human being. I don't see how any person could see that and think, hey, I'm sure the person's fine. Let's just get them back to the ship, even if there's a high probability that there's a creature implanted deep inside of them. Honestly, Ellen Ripley had the right idea in Alien when she chose to keep the original infected person outside of the ship until they knew what the facehugger was doing to him. I get that the person infected wants to survive. Who doesn't? Who wouldn't want to survive, right? So why don't the other people consider playing it safe to protect their own lives in their own best interests? Maybe I've just been watching too much Game of Thrones lately, but if I walked into a derelict space station that had clearly suffered a catastrophe and my colleague gets attacked by a facehugger, that person would be tossed out the airlock in a hot second. I'm so sorry. It really left the feeling that this group of people didn't have an adult in the room to talk some sense into them. Also, throughout the film, the timing is just off in Alien Romulus. The scavengers are on the space station for less than a day. However, in Alien, it took a good amount of time for the facehugger to implant the first xenomorph into the human and for it to grow, for it to break out of the human body, and then to grow into a full-size adult. Maybe the science experiments on the space station accelerated the growth rate. If so, that's not addressed at all in Alien Romulus, and it could have been. As a result, the same process takes a fraction of the time. Even worse, there is a second thing that happens in the story, and that takes even less time. Sure, it's great for building tension, but biology is biology, and you have to obey the laws of science. You have to help the audience either feel time pass or explain why their growth cycle has increased and is so out of scale from the original gestation period established in Alien. One of the best elements in the Alien franchise is how it uses androids. From Ash in Alien to Andy and Alien Romulus, I have to say the androids are fantastic. The original movie surprised and it just wowed everyone with Ash as a lifelike android that took everyone by surprise and remains technologically relevant today. Alien Romulus introduces us to Andy, the precursor to Ash, but its programming over time has gotten glitchy and Rain hasn't been able to fix it. However, on the station, Andy gets a bit of an upgrade, and I don't want to say more than that to avoid too many spoilers. But software upgrades rewrite information, generally speaking, replacing old code with new code. And Andy actually has to go offline for a few minutes during this process as the upgrade updates the software in his brain. There is a point when Andy gets downgraded back to his original old self. But that doesn't make sense in how it was done. I do think that what they did could have reverted his personality back to its previous stage, but all the other updates would not have been erased. Plus, when the downgrade happened, if they really wanted to sell it as a rewriting of his system back to its original state, he should have gone offline for a few minutes like he did for the upgrade. And that didn't happen. This was an easy mistake to fix. If they had just explained the removal of the chip and how it would have kind of stopped overriding his personality without downgrading his system. But that didn't happen. So despite the flaws that I've mentioned, Alien Romulus is an exciting film that will likely please most of the hardcore Alien fans, just like me, because it is a return to the classic space horror that knows how to use a known creature in a realistic way to create tension, terror, and surprise throughout the entire film. The film does exactly what it sets out to do in establishing an authentic alien film that is absolutely exciting. And Cailee Spaeny and David Jonsson easily carry the film together. And I gotta say, Andy is my new favorite alien character, and I hope we see him again in the future. Alien Romulus also pulls off some fantastic new horror beats that were awesome and disturbing. While there are some significant problems, few of which I've covered here, I think this is one of those films where everything else is so well done that it is easy for the audience to kind of gloss over the inconsistencies and just go with the flow of the story, making Alien Romulus well worth the price of a ticket. So, Alien Romulus, what did you guys think? Am I just being nitpicky with the details here? What did you think? Did you enjoy the film? Did it work for you? What did or didn't work? I really want to know, because this is one of those films where I think we actually have a whole lot of stuff to talk about, both good and bad. Thanks again, everybody. And remember to give this film a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos because there are more coming. All right. Thanks so much. And I will see you all again soon. Bye.